Well, the world's eyes continue to be on Israel as they respond to that horrific terrorist attack on October the 7th by Hamas. And in today's McBLOG, we speak to our political correspondent in Israel. Well, we go back to our Israel correspondent, David Silver from Out of Zion Ministries, a Kiwi living in Haifa. David, greetings to you. Last time we talked, there was concern that Hezbollah might join the fight, and they're just north of you in Haifa, and that's come into play, isn't it? I mean, are you getting rockets into Haifa as we speak, or have you?
Well, that's Haifa right behind me. It's a photograph, but that's how it really looks out of our balcony, off our balcony at the front of our apartment. Hezbollah is engaged, but only partially, and they're using, most of the time, they are using short-range rockets and only reaching just across the border. I see there was a firing from, I don't know who it was. It could have been Hezbollah, or it could have been Hamas just a few hours ago out of Syria. And that landed, those two rockets or three rockets landed, fortunately, on open ground, but on the Golan Heights. So that's the first time that area has been hit. Most of it is coming up towards the left-hand side of the upper border. This is the Golan Heights is more on the right-hand side. So Hezbollah, I don't know what they're doing. They're kind of toying with us a little bit. And Stefan, our son Stefan, is in a very, very strategic position up there. I can't give you too much information, but he says that we've done more damage to them, to Hezbollah at least, than they've done to us. But you've also got Hamas operatives inside southern Lebanon and also inside southern Syria. So that whole area is it's on a knife edge. Israel, of course, is we are firing back. We're trying to keep it limited because we don't want to inflame that situation. But they're obviously being pushed by Iran and by Hamas in Gaza to get more involved. But that really will create some issues for us. I think the closest they got to Haifa was probably towards the end of the picture there, the end of the water, which is a town called Nahariya, which is just past Akko. So that's about 20 Ks north of where we're sitting.
Okay, so it's pretty close. Look, just before we look at the Gaza situation, one thing that fascinated me in all of this is that your government, which seems to have an election every year, is comprised of far left, centre right, far right, and yet on this issue they have come together and they're quite united on this one issue of responding to Hamas. Are they still united? Are they still holding that unity?
Well, they're not fully united. There are some that aren't participating, but the head of the biggest party came in, and the biggest opposition party came into the war cabinet, and they have formed a unity government. So it's not totally unified, but it's much more unified than it was before this started. And those of us who were watching said, with the terrible disunity that we had, is that Israel needs a war to sort this out, because that's the only thing that really does bring us together. And really everybody pressing in and collecting food items, collecting toiletries and sending them to the soldiers, it's just amazing. And even there's a large number of Orthodox Jews who don't normally participate. They're turning up to the draft officers, and they're volunteering to go into the army, maybe not to fight because they haven't had training, but they'll probably go into support situations, but they are pressing in. So it's really even bringing the religious and the secular together as well.
David, I'm keen for you to answer this critique because we do hear it, and I'm sure you've heard it as well, and that is that the Israeli response has not been proportionate, or it's been disproportionate in Gaza. How would you respond to that?
Basically, we've got to stop it from happening again, Bob. And if we don't, each time we've had a skirmish with Hamas, and it's been almost every 1 or 2 years, we are pushed by outside influence, particularly the United States and the UN, the European Union. We're pushed to bring it to an end and to bring a ceasefire or to come to a ceasefire before we're able to finish the job. And I'm not even sure that you can finish the job, but one thing that these people don't realize, and they can look it up if they want to, is if you look up the Hamas Charter, you can find it on the internet in English, and the Hamas Charter, right from day one, it says that Hamas exists for the absolute removal of Israel. So they're committed to that. Our government is saying, we're going to finish with Hamas. I really can't see them being able to do that, because down there in the Gaza Strip, at least from the time that Hamas took over, from the time kids can stand, little toddlers can stand on their own 2 feet, they are being indoctrinated and brainwashed to hate us. And, if we did get rid of Hamas that exists right now, either a replacement organization would rise up fairly quickly, or the shoes of these other guys will be filled very, very quickly with, late teenagers and guys in their 20s who have been, as I've said, they've been indoctrinated and programmed against us. So it's, I'm calling it mission impossible, really.
Yeah. It's been interesting watching the media coverage, and I think the media really got caught out on the hospital attack. Israeli rocket, 500 killed, attacked the hospital, and in fact it was in the car park, and it was possibly an own goal by Hamas. But the media immediately rushed to report that it was Israel rocket without doing their homework. Is that typical of the media coverage you're seeing? Are you seeing a lot of stuff that simply isn't true?
Well, it's typical of media coverage for years and years and years, Bob. It's like, I think I wrote an article once and my heading was Israel, the country that the world loves to hate. Sadly, it's true. And the media, the media is really responsible, or they should be responsible, but they're actually responsible for fanning the flames of anti-Semitism that I believe is even, there have been pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel demonstrations, even in Auckland, at least. I'm not sure about the rest of the country. And really, the media should be held accountable, because the American military, the UK, I think France now, at least, and even Canada, because the Canadian Prime Minister came out and blamed Israel right at the outset. But they've all come to to realize from evidence that Israel's prevented that. There was no way it was Israel. It was definitely 100% a misfired Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket, and apparently 20% of their rockets fail, and because they're very rudimentary, and they've even been cutting up their own water pipes, because they use the steel pipes for the body of these rockets. So there's been at least 500 rockets have fallen back down in their own territory. So the media really does need to, instead of I guess they want to get news out very quick, and I've been caught out doing that as well too, Bob. I wanted to get some information out without really checking into it, going too quickly, and it turned out to be wrong. So they really need to slow down a little bit, maybe report it, and be honest that we don't know who's responsible for this, but we'll let you know as soon as possible. That's all they need to do.
I found it fascinating that Egypt didn't want to open its borders to the Palestinians, which sort of suggests to me that they're not too keen on them coming into Egypt. I mean, did that surprise you?
Well, that's happened before as well, and Jordan doesn't want them. I mean, these countries are struggling financially anyway, and to have 1 or 2 million people come, refugees come in, I can understand that. But then I don't know where these people can go, because they've got the sea on one side, Israel wrapped around, and they've got Egypt at the bottom, and they can't even really get to Jordan anyway. There's no way for them to physically get across without going through Israel, and that would cause problems as well. As I said, this is really, it's going to take God. It's going to take a real God thing to sort this out. And it's at this point in time, it seems to be getting worse rather than better. Israel's still waiting to send our massive ground forces in, if that's going to happen. They're being held back. Number one, for the sake of the hostages who are still in there. And number two, I guess the America and others are still putting pressure on our Prime Minister, at least, to hold that off for now, because they know how bad it's probably going to be when it happens. But I don't know, it could happen at any time, or maybe they've got some other alternative that we don't know about. But it really is a very, very difficult situation that I wouldn't want to be responsible for.
Could Hamas stop this conflict by releasing the prisoners?
I don't know if they would if it would stop it. Israel, we don't want to fight. We don't want to send our boys in there. I think it would take more than that, Bob. It would probably take some kind of pledge from them that they would never do it again. But then how do you trust them? And maybe some kind of international force. But we've seen that up on the Lebanese border, and they turn a blind eye to what they're doing because I guess the Western world is so, what's the word, intimidated by the Islamic world. They're always standing on the wrong side of the situation. So it would take some major negotiations, some promises that would have to be, fairly solid. And I believe it would take international peacekeepers if they play, if they are honest to keep the situation under control. Because as I said, Israel, we can't let this happen again because it just happens over and over and over again. Thank goodness it's never been as serious as it was this time. But I mean, this was so serious to lose 1,400 citizens in such a brutal and tragic way. What other, every country would, every country would react. I don't know what would be proportionate when something like that happens to your own country, to your own people.
I actually saw a commentary that said, hang on, let me just get it on my phone. It says, Israel is the only country forced to defend itself for defending itself, which there is a lot of truth to that. There was immediate opposition, and as though Israel deserved it. One thing I was interested in is, are people in Gaza speaking up against Hamas at last?
Not that I've heard, and I think that they're too scared to, because Hamas just uses fear tactics over their own people. And surely there must be some, there are Christians down there who are, who are also under, they're under fear from Hamas. With the Christian bookstores have been burnt down, churches have been attacked. But there must be also obviously there must be good Muslims or decent Muslims. And before Hamas came in, the borders were open. There was no occupation. We had our settlements in there, but it all worked quite well. And tens of thousands, maybe up to 100,000 people from Gaza would come to Israel to work every day, and they'd take their wages back. They were having a reasonable lifetime. I think if I remember correctly, at one point of time, Gaza City had the highest proportion of luxury cars in the Middle East, so that they had it going good down there. But Hamas came in, that at one stage the Palestinian Authority was responsible for the Gaza Strip, and that was when everything was going relatively well. But when Hamas came in, because again their charter, they came in to get rid of Israel, and that's when things started turning sour. And we did pull out of Gaza. We're not occupying Gaza. There's not one Jewish person or military person been inside Gaza since we pulled out. I think that was 1985 or 1986. If that's sorry, it'll be 2005 or 2006 when Ariel Sharon, under American pressure, of course, pulled everybody out of Gaza. But since then, we've had all of these skirmishes, and before then, we had these kind of settlement blocks, which just made it difficult for these people to communicate, to move weaponry through the Gaza Strip. But when we left Gaza, we just left the whole place wide open, and it was just, we left all of our hot houses there, all of the food growing facilities. We left them there. I think Bill Gates paid Israel for them and gave them to the people down there in Gaza. Hamas came in and used them as rocket launching sites. So these people just I think it was one of our prime ministers said that he was actually talking about Yasser Arafat, but you could apply it to all of these people, that they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. The Gaza Strip could be paradise, like the coast of Israel is, with beautiful beaches, and they can grow food down there, but they have this religious thing to get rid of us.
Yeah. Just one other thing was that, the kind of messaging coming out is that Israel is starving Gaza of water and food, etc. But my understanding is that Israel actually only provides about 5 to 6% of the water, and it's just on the border, and it's basically the way of the army to drive people out of the north where Hamas is based and get them to go south. Is that correct?
Well, it's 7%. Israel was
Right.
supplying 7%, so that's how much we've cut off. But as I said earlier, they've actually been pulling up their water pipes
Mm,
to use the metal for rockets,
mm.
and but we have cut their fuel supply off. But why fuel your
Yeah,
enemy?
that's right. Yeah.
And I read today that Hamas has got 500,000 liters of fuel stored for their own use. They won't give it to the people for their cars to get
Mm,
out. They're keeping it for
mm.
themselves to run their generators for the tunnels.
Yeah.
And one of the ladies who, the elderly lady who got released last night, she had been kept down there in those tunnels, and she said it was like a spider's web down there. There's these massive tunnels that you can drive vehicles through, and you can go in one area and come out another. They've been working on this for years and years and years. It's probably the most sophisticated and extensive tunnel system anywhere in the world. And I
Wow.
don't know where did they get the material
Yeah.
from the concrete and everything else that we were sending across for the building of their homes.
Mm, mm. You mentioned protests. Yeah, there have been some protests in New Zealand, and some Green MPs. With the sign "From the river to the sea," which of course is code for get rid of Israel, isn't it? That's correct, eh?
Yeah.
That
Mm.
saying.
Yep.
But on the positive side, a hui was hosted by Māori leaders in the north to show support for the Jewish people, and included representatives from Ratana, Kiingitanga, Ngāpuhi, Ngāti Whātua, Te Arawa, and various churches. And that was as far afield as the Bay of Plenty and Waikato. So there is a lot of support. Look, just finally, David, how are families faring in all of this, and what are the prayer needs?
Yeah, well, it's very, very difficult. We're really living from minute to minute because we haven't had any sirens up here warning of rockets coming in. But like I'm expecting it could happen at any minute. We've had drones fly over the top of our house that kind of freaked us out, but they actually turned out to be our own drones. So Stepan is up there on the northern border. Our other son is down in Gaza. He's actually come home. He's home for this afternoon and tomorrow until about lunchtime. So that's the first time he's been home. But their wives are, they're trying to handle their whole family maintenance at home without their husbands there. The young girls are freaking out. One of the youngest girl, she's about 7. She's hyperventilating. She's crying. I mean, it's terrible. And that's probably the situation in many families, because I would say at least 50% of the country don't have their fathers or sons at home with them. But praise God, we've got our food stocked up. We've got our bags packed in case we're ready to go. But we literally don't know what's going to happen in the next few minutes. It's really a test of our faith. It really is a test of our faith. And I'm just trying to remain positive and thinking it's not going to happen because God is going to do something. I'm really expecting God to do something spectacular to somehow put this to a very quick end and give Israel the victory, and somehow, if it's possible, for this not to happen again, and particularly that the northern border won't erupt into a full-scale missile war, because they have at least 150, probably 200,000, maybe even more very advanced late model long-range missiles that can probably reach almost all of Israel. It would overwhelm our anti-missile system. We would be in serious trouble. So just prayer needs. Just pray for number one. Just pray for God to honor His promises all the way through, particularly through the Hebrew scriptures, the Old Testament. God's made amazing promises for Israel. He'll go before us. He'll go ahead of us. He'll protect us before the sun or the moon ever cease from giving their light. Will Israel cease from being a nation of if God says, if I've not said it, will I not? If I've said it, will I not do it? So we're waiting to see what He's going to do. There have been reports of minor miracles, but we need a major miracle. And also just pray for the hostages to be released, of course, because that's really causing big problems for them as well as for the military. And pray for our government and our military leaders to get some wisdom from above to know how to deal with this.
Okay. And I know that because I'm getting your newsletters now, we're getting, you're holding prayer meetings on Zoom so that New Zealanders can join in with other international allies, etc. So just give us your website again so people can connect with you and keep up to date.
Well, it's best if they send me an email, I guess. It'll be easier.
Okay.
So my email address is david@outofzion.org.
Yeah.
The website is www.outofzion.org. So Out of Zion, it's all small case and it's all together with no spaces or anything in it. So www.outofzion.org, and there is a way to subscribe there, or just send me an email and ask me to put you on our list. And I've had to reduce my my communications to twice a week, because it's just too much to do it every day. So what I'm trying to do, as long as we have electricity and internet, and as long as we're here, is to send out a report on. They should get it in New Zealand late Friday afternoon, and also late Tuesday afternoons. That's what a midweek update. So unless something really spectacular or drastic happens, we need to organize some urgent prayer. So anyway,
it's great. It's a great update and video update as well. So outofzion.org. And I think last time I shared, Psalm 122, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they be secure who love you. Peace be within your walls and security within your towers. So that's our prayer, David. Look, really appreciate your time, and stay safe. Also pray for your boys in the IDF, and just the families going through this on both sides of the border, because there are families who just don't want this war to continue. So thanks for your time, David.
Okay, well, Shalom, Bob, and shalom to everyone down there in New Zealand and wherever they are.